This is an instructional video for how to use my SVG cutting file set to create this Rose Surprise box frame card. I'll leave a link in the description if you'd like to get it for yourself. Okay, let's take a look at the project first of all. So this is a version I made to test out the design without any printing on it. So you can see there you've got the slip wrap with the finger holes to help you get to the card inside. Then you've got a ribbon closure on the card itself, and when you open that up you've got a nice deep box frame into which you could put the decoupage which I've included in the bundle, or of course you could choose your own embellishment to go in there. You could even secure it in with a piece of acetate if you wanted to. But there we go, that's the three elements that go to make the card itself. And here's one I've made using some of the elements from the kit. There was the tag, the printed background papers, and inside another version of that layered rose. I left the inside of the print blank because then that could be where your sentiment goes or where you write a message to whoever you're giving this to. But of course, if you would prefer, you can always print on both sides of your cardstock, and then you will have pattern wherever you see cardstock basically. Okay, so a couple of quick pointers. The decoupage sheet I have printed onto 160 GSM paper. So it's not quite card, but it's not quite paper. Hope that makes sense. The With Love is printed on its own because there is no defined outline. That's just cut with the SVG cutting file. The background papers I have printed onto 250 GSM, however I would actually recommend something a little bit lighter, perhaps 200 to 220 GSM. In the printed step-by-step instructions I have included alternatives for the imperial measurements. You'll need an embossing ball tool to help you shape the flower. So if you're not using that decoupage from the set, you may not need that. I would recommend, however, a handheld scoring tool and a ruler because we're going to pre-score our fold lines, and also a precision glue pen. This helps us get the glue where we want it and not where we don't. 3D glue helps us layer up the tag and also the rose inside the card, and it also helps us attach embellishments too. So I've included that in my what you will need list. Of course, you could alternatively use a hot glue gun. One more thing I chose to use was some paper twine and an alcohol marker, and that's just so that I could give it a colour to match my project. Adhesive gems add a little twinkle, but of course the decoration of this project is entirely up to you. The fork actually helped me make the twine bow that you see on the tag in the project that I made, and I'll show you how to do that later. But for now, that's everything that you will need apart from some tweezers, which I find help me with fiddly things like the gems or the layered rose, and also a little mat, like a mouse mat, something like that, to help with the embossing of the layered rose. So that is everything that I used. So let's clear the decks and make a start. The first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to use my electronic cutting machine to cut the first 3 SVG cutting files from the patterned cardstock. Now obviously you see me using a scan and cut machine here. Obviously if you have a Silhouette machine or a Cricut machine, this process will be different. So I would just check your user manual or ask a friend how do I cut SVG cutting files using my machine. One thing I did do, however, which you may also want to do whichever machine you've got, is just nudge the design down and across a little bit so that it fits within the bordered area of the printed paper. If you're using a pre-printed paper, you probably won't have that issue. So the first part that I'm cutting are the elements that will make up the deep box frame that goes inside the card. The next part that I'm going to cut is the printed decoupage. Now, as you saw, I've already printed this onto a 160 GSM lightweight cardstock or paper, and I've loaded that onto a low-tack cutting mat. With the scan and cut machine, obviously we are lucky. We have the option to scan a photograph onto the screen so we can visually match up the shapes to the design. If, however, you have a different machine like a Silhouette or a Cricut, you may need to look at the alignment options that you've got available to you in your software. Basically, though, by moving them all together, you'll find that once you line it up with one of the bigger shapes like the square, then all of the other shapes should line up as well. Probably easier than trying to manually align all 7. When I have got that aligned, though, I will send it through to cut. Remember, the tag shape is also included, so that will cut around that with love sentiment. Okay, let's just run through what we've cut one more time, just so you're sure. This part, which looks like a weird thing, is the slip wrap cover. So this will fold together to create that. This long part with the holes at either end is the card cover. So this is the part that goes around the box frame. And then the last 3 parts, which is the large piece with the square aperture and the 2 longer, smaller pieces, they make up the box frame itself. So I've tried to make sure there were as few pieces as possible to make this as easy as possible to assemble. And then, of course, inside we have the layered rows. So that's the bit that I cut last, and that also included the tag that will go onto the front of the wrap. Okay, let's start assembling this. When you've cut your design, what you will notice is there are a couple of notches at either end where you need to make a score line. Now, if you have the relevant software and would like to do it with your machine, of course, please feel free to go ahead and do that. However, I chose to do this manually, as not everyone has this feature on their machines. So just a tip, make sure you offset your ruler the width of your folding tool, because you want your folding line to sit right on top of those notches. And the reason for that is that if they go either side, your box won't fit inside your wrap and everything will be out. So just pay careful attention there, take your time. Obviously I've sped this video up so I don't take all of your time up, but yes, just pay close attention and make sure you score across all of the tabs as well. When you're folding, just make sure that things line up. So when you fold the front of the box frame to the back, make sure that the lines are parallel. That will give you clean, crisp lines when you come to stick it all together. Basically, apart from the vertical lines on the inner side walls of the box frame, everything is a mountain fold, i.e. a fold away from the pattern. The vertical lines on these 2 pieces, however, are valley folds. So as you can see, they make like a V shape. Step 1 for assembling is we're going to apply glue to one of the tabs at the end of one of the smaller pieces that make up the box frame and stick those together to make one long strip. You'll need to do a lot of holding in place while you're gluing together. I usually count to 10 in my head, and that's usually enough time for it to grab the glue. If you've got a quick tack glue, all the better. You might even only have to count to 5. Here's a quick tip for this one though. Hold the bit you first glued, fold over, and then fold your tab back over. Not only does that help you keep everything in place while 2 edges are glued, it also helps you make sure they're properly aligned so you'll have straight edges to the inside of your box frame. So we'll leave that to one side to fully dry, and we'll make a start on the box frame itself. The first part that I'm going to glue is the tabs at one end. That's these two here. So once you've applied a little bit of glue, just fold in your tab and make sure the 2 sides join with a 90-degree angle. Keep it sharp, keep it tight. And then of course you'll hold that in place until it's dry and repeat for the other corner as well. If you have any little mini pegs, you could always use those to help you hold things in place while you continue working. But if you're not in a rush, just hold it and count to 10. There we go, first 2 parts glued. So next up I'm actually going to attach the inner walls of the box frame, and they're going to sit directly over that aperture. So rather than try and fiddle with all the tabs, I'm just applying the glue straight to the box frame outer shell itself. Might be handy if you stood and looked directly over at this point to make sure those edges line up perfectly and the corners are all in the right place. One bonus little tip here is use your scoring tool to rub smoothly over all of the tabs to make sure that glue gets spread and also glued in appropriately. Hold that down for a while, and then when it's dry you'll be ready to carry on, and you're going to do the next 2 side tabs. Remember to hold in place, count to 10, and then when both are done and stuck, it's time to attach the top to the bottom. So when it comes to gluing, I'm going to glue all of the tabs, and then one foul swoop, I'm going to stick everything together. There we go, and then you'll just smooth it down. Again, hold it in place for a short while, and when it's all stuck down, we can leave it to rest. There we go. Any ideas what you're going to put in yours yet? Okay, next up we've got the box frame card itself, and you'll notice there are two different ends. You want the end that is by the two holes to be the back of your project, so your box frame will sit on there. So I just apply glue to the entire back of the box frame. And then I make sure that the raw edge of the box frame goes inside, because we can cover that up with the hinge. Make sure that all the sides are level with the card, and make sure that obviously your hinge and flaps can close. When that's caught, when that's glued, you can make a choice. You can glue the hinge together like this, or you could leave it loose like you see here. I prefer to glue the hinge to the frame, as that hides a multitude of sins at that end, but also it kind of makes it a cool card. Your choice though, your project, your choice. Again, a short bit of holding while that dries. Next up we're going to take a look at the inside, the layered rows. And for this we've obviously got the various bits and pieces that we cut out earlier. And what I am going to do is just arrange these in size order. And my choice for this was to shape and glue them, or apply the 3D glue at the same time, because I was going to work with it straight away. You may want to emboss now and then glue later. Again, your choice. But generally what we're doing is just doing circular motions around the edges to give it a little bit of curve to the petals and to the main body of the rose. For the last couple of layers I also turned it over and embossed in the center, and that again just gives it that extra little bit of shape. Now there is also one final part, which is the little curved shape. That's an extra layer if you would like to use it. I chose not to on this occasion, but it's entirely up to you. Next we're just gluing and sticking and layering basically. Of course, if you don't enjoy using 3D glue, you can always use foam pads to do this process. But the first layer with the background square, just use box standard PVA, as I've done all throughout this project, and then insert it. And then you should have a little bit of wiggle time just to make sure that it's in the right place. Okay, and now we're going on with the layers. If you find it hard to match up the pieces, use the central spiral as a guide. I found that helped me a lot. And there we have our layered rose in the center of the card, all coming together now. Okay, next up I'm going to start forming the wrap. This starts out with the two smallest tabs on either side, and then I'll fold those up to join the base, or sorry, the top, no, the base. Either way, I'm folding up to join the part with the curved tabs. Again, holding in place and repeating for the other side until you have the two sides stuck. Now I'm bringing back in my card and box frame so that I can insert them, and then I can glue the tabs and bring the top down. That allows me to make sure that the wrap is going to fit the project. Nothing worse than when you've done it and your wrap doesn't fit your card. Once you've got things secure with your wrap, you can take out your box card and leave the wrap to dry. Next up, let's decorate that wrap. So I'm going to be using the tag that I cut from the decoupage sheet, and I'm going to give that a little bit of shape with my scoring tool. I'll then use some 3D glue to stick that onto the card wrap, and then I'll crack on with decorating it. To finish the tag, I first added some adhesive gems. They were playing silly blighters, but I got there in the end. Next, I coloured in that paper twine using an alcohol marker, and I found in the end that it was easier to hold the pen in place and draw the string through. Just a tip, by the way, allow that alcohol ink to dry before you go handling that thread too much. Otherwise you will have lots and lots of coloured stripes on your hand. And now for the fork. Okay, so I've laid my twine across the fork. I'm going to wrap it around a few times, and then when I come back to the top, I'm going to take the thread down through the middle prong, under, and then up through the middle prong over the wrapped twine, and then just tie a knot. And that allows me to form a little bow. Always love that little tip. Just pull your knot tight at that point and snip off the ends of the thread, and then you've got a little embellishment that matches the colour of the project. So always have some white paper twine and a few alcohol markers and a whole craft stash of stuff. Anyway, some 3D glue to stick that in place. There we go, that's the wrap. So, to apply the ribbon. Now, the ribbon is going to need to go down through the double holes and then out or up through the single hole. It will make sense, believe me. So take one end, thread it through one of the holes and yank it through about halfway. Then take the other end and pass that through the other hole. So it should be facing out from the box, like that. Both ends then go through the single hole from the inside of the box. And there we go, that's the bow in place, and all you need to do is tie a bow to finish that off, and then slip your card into the wrap. Cool, isn't it? Don't forget, if you'd like to get this SVG cutting file for yourself, it's available now on my blog gentlemancrafter.com. I'll leave a link in the description of the YouTube video below. That's it for this video. If you have enjoyed your time with me today, please remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for notifications of future videos. In the meantime, thank you again for watching, and I will see you hopefully next time.